It's time for Cutting Edge Consciousness with Freeman Michaels and Barnett Bain. Thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
It's Cutting Edge Consciousness. This is Barnett Bain with my co-host
Freeman Michaels.
That's right. You got that right.
I know my name.
You're doing that very, very well.
Well, years of professional training.
It's good to be here today. It's a big day in Los Angeles.
Yeah,
Lots of excitement in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Sports fans are having a glorious day of
celebrating the Kings.
Celebrating the Kings.
Sports fans are also celebrating the Giants. My team, San Francisco, which is not popular in Los Angeles. Their pitcher Matt Cain pitched a perfect game.
How's that?
Yeah, we usually don't talk sports here on Cutting Edge Consciousness, but why not?
Well, last week we had on a great waterman.
You're right.
The surfer Garrett McNamara, who rode the tallest wave on record.
Yeah, and it also, this idea of pitching a perfect game, listening to the interview afterwards, and just how Matt Cain didn't know how he did it. Like, they kept asking him how he did it.
How did you get into the flow?
Exactly.
How did you drop into the flow?
Right. Yeah.
Lots of mastery, lots of hours, and then lots of letting go.
That's exactly right. It's interesting too. One of the things that is important with flow is a sense of purpose and a sense of, obviously, focus and all these variables that collapse in a moment to create this thing that no one can really predict. And every sports psychologist, every psychologist has tried to anticipate, how do you do this? And at the end of the day, there's this element of mystery, which I think is, really appropriate for our conversation. And there's another thread that I want to tie in this week. I want to talk a little bit about service, the idea of being of service, because it's
the mystery of service.
Well, now
there is a mystery to it.
You just upped the game, so I could go with where you're going. But I was actually going to introduce it from the level of, what's popular about the word service, I'm being of service. It's an of service thing. Is that while I don't want to undermine the good intentions of those kinds of statements, there is in my mind, and I'm guessing you share this with me, there is an up-leveling where it's not a trying to be of service thing anymore, where there's an element, an understanding, if you will, of it's a connectedness. I'm gonna frame this the best I can. There's a point where I'm not focused on being of service necessarily, but I do something that is sort of beyond altruism. It's beyond trying to conform to. I see this in this language is going to get me in trouble. In image of what it would be to be of service. It goes farther than that. Do you know what I'm talking about right now?
I think I have my own sense of what you're talking about. On the surface of things, or right below the surface of things, is consciousness, singular, seeking wholeness. On the surface of that becomes expressed. It becomes expressed in our acts and in our actions and what we do, what we say, what we think. When we have a sense of ourselves as being in the world, consciousness expresses seeking wholeness in one way. That would be the hero's journey.
Right,
exactly. That's Luke Skywalker,
yes.
looking to save the rebellion or whatever it was.
Looking to have an effect on the outside world.
Looking to have an impact.
That's
and
right.
Then that's the hero's journey. There's a call, you respond to the call, there's a resistance to the call, and eventually there's choice making and commitment. At some point, that hero's journey, that hero discovers the force. What happens when you resist the call and you discover the force and you bring it back? what happens? It's no longer about the hero's journey. Now it becomes a magician's journey. It becomes the story of how do you behave when you know yourself to be the entire thing, to be at one with the force. Then what are your behaviors? Then how does consciousness express seeking wholeness in terms of identifying or itself relating to the whole thing as you?
And it's interesting because at that point we're letting go of the catchphrases, we're letting go of the signposts. I mean, they're helpful on the path of the hero's journey. I want to be of service, and
not so much on the magician's journey,
right?
though.
So this is exactly right. So at some point they top out, and there's a reason for doing things that is very different than that initial sort of striving to figure it out and to offer my gifts and when in the flow moment, all of that in essence evaporates. It's not about any of those things.
We've said before on this program that at one level, and they're both beautiful and good and true, but in one paradigm, the highest truth is I am my brother's keeper.
Right.
In the paradigm of the magician, I am my brother.
Yeah.
And so service becomes the only possible act.
That's delicious, right there.
What else is there? It's the only response that there could be.
So good.